Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to Wonder Series Wednesday. Yep, it is Wednesday again, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, and I am here with my special guest, Eileen Joy. Today, we want to help you think outside the box when it comes to money, finances, and planning. I know those are all things that most of you are going, Denise, I don't want to talk about that. But these are things as women we absolutely need to talk about. We need to know where we stand. And so Eileen is here today to really to help us get started, starting today with a couple of smart tips and strategies that you can use starting today. So welcome, Eileen. How are you?
I am doing amazing, Denise. Thank you so much for having me here today. This is going to be an amazing conversation. I could talk about money for hours.
I have been looking forward to this conversation for a while. So tell us a little bit about you and how you became, quote unquote, the money coach for moms.
Well, I never in a million years ever thought that I would be a money coach for moms or anyone for that matter. But it all started because of my divorce. And during my divorce, I ran out of money. And when I had interviewed all the attorneys and I told them how much money I had, not one of them said, "Oh, that won't be a problem." They would just ignored it. And I knew just from hearing other people talking about divorce and how much it costs. And I was worried. That's why I brought it up, because I didn't have a tremendous amount saved. It wasn't a tiny bit, but it was just insane. So I ran out of money in the middle of my divorce. And then I started getting harassed by the attorney's office, and they started to seize everything from me. And they were harassing me, telling me that they were going to stop services and do all these things. And I then had to figure out, well, where am I going to get the money to pay these people, like tens of thousands of dollars? And I had to sell my house to pay for my divorce. And then at the same time, I was working with my sister-in-law who was making my life miserable at work. And I had to leave. I had to find a new job. I had a great job, but I had to find a new job. I couldn't stay there anymore. So I ended up finding a better job, thankfully, right? The universe always does that for us, right? And then my son and I got into a really bad car accident, and we both ended up in the hospital, and my car was totaled. And all of this was happening all at the same time at the tail end of a bankruptcy. So I was literally left with nothing at the end of my divorce. And I received a check in the mail from my attorney's office at the end of the day, when it was all said and done, for $347. And that was all I had left in the world. I would have had tens of thousands of dollars from the sale of my home, but it went to them. So after I picked myself up off the floor from sobbing in the fetal position for a while and saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm now a single mom with a 5-year-old. And I had to pick myself up and figure it out. So I did. And so I went step by step. I got a house. I got a job. I did all the things, got a new car. And so I got my car, and I got a 6-year car loan because, I wanted to stretch those payments out as far as I could and make them as small as I possibly could. And it was just crazy. So then I realized that I needed to figure out my money. And it was a very quick realization, realizing that I was just spending my money, not paying attention to it. I didn't know what was going on. And it was just this random process that made no sense. And I ended up always having more months at the end of the money. And I realized that I was just spending it all. I had enough money, but I was just spending and spending and spending and spending and not paying any attention to it. And I had nothing saved. I wasn't saving, nothing. And I was just barely making it. So that's when I realized, okay, I need to do something. So I figured it out. I jumped in. I just jumped in and did whatever I could to figure it out. And very quickly, I had a fully funded emergency fund. I paid off that 6-year car loan in 3 years. My credit score jumped from a 600 and something to over 800. I'm now on track to retire early and completely debt-free. And I did this in such a quick amount of time that all my friends were asking me, Eileen, what did you do? How did you do this? You need to show me what you did. I need to know now. Like, what did you do? So I did. I started helping my friends and explaining to them, this is what I did, you know. And at that time, it was a very primitive thing. Now I've made the whole thing, you know. And I was
You
like,
have a
look, this is
system.
just what I did. Yeah, now I have a system. I made it. I make money easy. Right. And that's what I did
Love
for
it.
them. Right. That's what I do. I'm a money coach for moms. I make money easy. And I made it so easy that I also started teaching my son. And now my son is 10 and he knows more about money than most adults. And I've set him up. He is so set up that he's going to be a multimillionaire by the time he's my age, and he will never have to worry about money, ever. He will have opportunities and choices to do whatever he wants. He doesn't have to sit in a cubicle in a soul-sucking job for the rest of his life, wondering, what if, you know? And so I've empowered both of us with a financial education. And now, because organically my friends started saying, oh, you need to help my friend, and then started referring people to me and saying, oh, my friend Eileen can help you. It just kind of organically turned into a business. And so here I am now, the money coach for moms, making money easy for moms and their kids. And it's so much fun. And I just love it every single day.
Well, it's so amazing to me because, you know, most of the people that I know, you know, growing up, you know, they had a job and they had a house and like you know, it's like the end of the month, but you know, the money's running out. And, you know, that was, well, this is how much I make. This is what our bills are. And that was kind of my understanding of, you know, money. You kind of have to make a lot of money to, you know, in order to pay for the things that you need, not necessarily things you want, because that was always kind of, you know, that was a dream. And I grew up kind of in a household where, you know, yeah, you worked a lot to pay your bills. And what I'm hearing from you just in the first few minutes is there's a lot more to it than that.
I could go on for days, but yes. So what you're essentially talking about
Mm.
is your money story.
Mm.
And I talk a lot about this because money is not just numbers, right? Money is energy. And also it's in our head.
Mm.
Everyone makes money decisions out of fear or anxiety or guilt or embarrassment or shame.
Mm-hmm.
And when women come to me, most of them feel all of these feelings. And sometimes people are so afraid to reach out because of the embarrassment and the shame and all these feelings. And they're just like so embarrassed that they hide. And the problem just keeps getting worse. Right. So it's all because of your mindset and your money story. So your money story is shaped from the time that you're age 0 to 7. So you're born into money stories.
Mm-hmm.
And my mission is to break generational money patterns, and I'll explain what that is. So your money story is shaped from your parents and your environment, right? And your parents have a money story. They learned their money story from their parents. Their parents learned their money story from their parents, and backwards and backwards and backwards and so on and so on. Thousands of years
Mm-hmm.
have gone by, right? Our ancestors passed forward all of their money BS, right? And it just forwards to us. And then we're programmed from the time we're age 0 to 7 with all of these messages. So whether or not our parents are directly teaching us or our environment is directly teaching us about anything, money, whatever, it just goes in our subconscious and it lives there. And that's how we operate. Mm-hmm. Until we have our aha moment and we say, oh, wait a minute, something needs to change. And with money, it's so interesting because it's not only your parents, and we don't learn about money in school.
No,
right? So it's your parents and your environment. Mm-hmm. And so one day I was with my son. I've normalized the talk of money in my house that it's like, you know, it's hot out. How's your money? You know, it's so normal. It's like talking about the weather. What do you want for dinner? You know, how much did you make today? You know, whatever. And like I've shown him paychecks and like explain like this is how much I make. And you know, and he knows everything. And there's no secrets. You know, and that's really important. And I'll talk about that in a little bit because that's a very important thing to talk about.
I think so too.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a secret. And so money is so taboo. And that's just the way it is in our environment, right? And that people walk around with these thoughts of money is evil, money doesn't grow on trees, people with, money are greedy and all these things. And so my son said to me one day, we were in the store and we were shopping, and we're always talking about money. So we're talking about money. And he said, "Hey, mommy," I still can't. "Hey, mommy, people who are rich are greedy and mean, right? I don't want to be rich because I don't want to be like that."
Oh,
He said, "I'm a very kind and generous person, so I can't be rich." And I looked at him and I said, "Those words have never crossed my lips. Where did you hear that?" And he told me that it was on a cartoon. Yes. So
interesting.
it's everywhere. So even whoever wrote that cartoon put their money story into some character, right? So it's just everywhere. And we hear it and we don't realize it unless we're mindful of it.
Mhm.
And then it just lives within us. And so a lot of people just walk around saying, yeah, people with money are mean and evil and greedy and awful, and it's not for me. I don't want that. So they're actually repelling money,
Right.
because you're basically telling the universe, I don't want money because I don't want to be that way. I don't want to be evil and mean and, a biatch and whatever, you know?
That's interesting. That's actually an interesting piece, because as you were just finishing up there, I thought of this coach who I knew, who I met a bunch of years ago, and I was at an event that she was holding. And one of the girls or one of the women in the audience said, "Well, but I don't want to be like you." And I understood what she meant. She didn't want to be a coach like this particular woman, but every one of us sitting in that room wanted to be like her, because she was what we thought was success. I mean, she was putting on this amazing event. So she was
Mhm.
obviously successful and had money, but this person didn't want to be like her. And that person actually said, "Well, then you'll never have any money. You'll never be successful." And at the time, I thought, that's pretty rough.
Yeah.
But what you just said just now actually made
Makes sense
that
now.
made that, yeah, that makes sense now. That
Yeah.
actually completely makes sense. Interesting.
Yeah. It's all your minds. Everything in your minds is telling you can't without saying you can't. It's all the no, 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 no. And for me personally, my money story, just a quick little thing so you know where I'm coming from and how I grew up. So I grew up, my mom was a spender. She still is. She's a spender. And then she would get the bills and then complain about the bills. And she was always like, the bills, oh, all of these bills. And I'm like, well, stop spending all your money and you won't have the bills, And she was just maxing out credit cards and all these things. And my dad had a gambling addiction. So in our house, the money was always going away. They
Mm,
both had amazing jobs. They made great money. But there was never any money because it was just going away. And they were repelling money in their own way. And so
mhm.
then they always fought. And the fighting in our house was so bad that my sister ran away from home and I didn't talk to her for 20 years.
Oh my.
Yeah. And I recently just started talking to her again when my father passed away. And it's crazy, and everyone's money story is different.
Mhm.
Every single person has their own money story, has their own issues with money. I always say personal finance is personal. And one of the things about money is that everyone makes a different amount. Everyone has a different lifestyle. Everyone has a different place where they live and their cost of living, and everything surrounding their financial situation is different.
Right.
So when people ask me money questions, most of the time, depending upon the question, it's, I don't know. I need to look at your numbers. Because people will come to me and say, what should I do with my tax return? I don't know. I need to look at your numbers. I need to see the whole entire picture, because someone can say to you, hey, what should I do with my tax return? And you'd be like, go on vacation, pay a bill. I can't give you the advice
Mhm.
that you really need unless I can really look at your whole entire financial picture, because personal finance is personal.
What would be included in that picture? Give us a good
Everything,
picture of what's in the picture.
everything. You need to know what's coming in. First
Mhm.
of all, you need to know, how much do you make?
Mm.
And then how much are you spending? What are your debts? What's your savings? What's your investments? Just everything, everything. Because there's so many people that are in so much debt. I have clients that from all ends of the spectrum. I have clients that have doctorates in finance that have no idea how to manage their money. And then I have this woman who has 5 kids and is single and is just trying to make ends meet and everything in between. Right. So everyone's financial situation is totally different.
Yeah.
And everyone's, so when I look at what you have, it's really just based on you.
Because when
Right.
you said tax
Yeah.
return, I was like, what's that? Because we're in a situation where we
You're
rarely
just
get money
paying.
back.
Yeah.
We're always paying.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, it's, personal finance is personal. We're in a different situation. And of course, when I started my business, like, I'm in a place now this year where like, okay, we got, we've got it up and running. This business needs to make money. And so I'm always curious to hear about what about my money story, as you heard a bit of it, and how that could potentially, counter what I'm doing with my business.
Yeah. I'll give you a quick story if you want to hear this, because this has
Absolutely.
everything to do with business and what made me a little nervous when I started my business, because I don't know how to run a business, right? I was an employee my whole life when I started working when I was in high school until now, and I didn't know what I was doing. My father, the one who had the gambling addiction, also started a business. And he started a business. He always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and so did I. I always had something going on the side. It was just, like network marketing or something. I always had something going on the side because it was fun. And even when I was little, I would take my toys and put them in my wagon and walk around the neighborhood and knock on doors and sell them.
Oh,
But it's crazy. Anyway, so my dad, he started a business while he was working, and he would work nights at his job and run his business during the day, and he hardly slept. And he was so passionate about his business. He started a pharmaceutical packaging company because of something that happened to my grandmother at the pharmacy. And he came up with this idea. He got a patent. He was working out of the basement in my toy room. He put a desk in my toy room, and then his business started to take off. And then he got his first factory, and it was amazing. I was so proud of him, and he was doing great. And I think I was in junior high at the time when this all started. And so then now I know, then I didn't know, he was borrowing money from anyone and everyone who would give him money. And he was just dumping it all into the business, but he had no idea how to manage the money. And so that's another reason why there were fights in the house too, because I found out that he emptied out all of my parents' retirement accounts without telling my mother, and took all of that money and put it into the business, went out and bought a car, didn't tell my mother, and said, oh, it's a business expense. And he was just spending, spending, spending. And then the fighting and the fighting and the fighting. And so then what ultimately happened was his business was wildly successful. He had a multi-million-dollar business. He had to get 3 more factories because he was growing and growing and growing. And then he got to a point where there was no more money. He couldn't get it from anywhere else. He was spending it all, not managing it properly, and ultimately had to file for bankruptcy. And then all the people that were working with him lost their jobs. And so I knew when I started my business that I would not run it that way. And I would know how to, first of all, find out how to run a business. So I hired a business coach, right? Because I need to know. And then also, how do I run my business finances? Because your personal finances are very different from your business finances. And so if you don't know how to manage your personal finances, you will run your business into the ground.
Yeah.
And so I do teach both, right? So I have a lot of mompreneurs that come to me that want to understand both. And there's some people that have a job and then have a part-time business, or sometimes people come to me and then we start a business while we're working together, and I show them how to have a profitable business from day one so that they don't have to worry ever.
Yeah. It really is amazing, because it's true. We at one point we said, we don't learn about money at school. We don't. We don't learn in high school. We don't learn in college unless you're taking finance or something like that. And it really is something that each one of us needs to know. Like you said, and like you, like I'm great at what I do when it comes to health and wellness and, writing and connecting with people. That's what I do. I help people up level their health and wellness. What on earth does that have to do with running a business? And, the first year I was like shocked at how much money I spent, $47 here, $97 there. And there's, it's in PayPal and, all of these different pieces where I realized after that first year, I was like, okay, I need to pare this down. How do I pay people?
Mhm.
And so, that was an eye opener for sure. And again, this is something that I'm really fortunate that Mark and I have a good relationship that we can talk about this. But I have
Yeah.
to say, we talk about the emotion sometimes that it was embarrassing that I had spent money that I didn't know or how much money I had spent without knowing it. That part, the embarrassment, that feeling like, ooh, I didn't know what I was doing. Gotten a lot
Yeah.
better at that.
And it's interesting too, because when you're married or if you're dating someone, you have your own money story and they have theirs, and then they collide.
Mm,
So unless you're communicating with each other about money, you could have the same situation that my parents had, where all they did was fight, and my sister and I were begging them to get divorced our whole, and they never did. I don't know why. They never did. But
we like to fight.
right, it's crazy. But the communication is so key. And so if you're married or have a partner or you're living with someone and you sharing the expenses, you have to communicate. And I call it a money date. You can get together with a money date. I have a money date with myself. I also have a money date with my son every single week. Whenever he gets his allowance, we get together and I pay him, and I have a spreadsheet and I show him this is it. I have an app that we use that we categorize his money. So I teach the 4 buckets. And
Okay.
the
What
4
are the 4
buckets are
buckets?
simply, you ready? I know you're
Yep.
writing this down.
I am writing this down. I am recording, but I'm going to write it down anyway.
It's easier. So the 4 buckets, you've got saving, investing, giving, and
Mhm.
spending.
Those are
And
easy buckets
it's
to
very
remember.
easy. And that's really all money is. It's those 4 buckets. That's it. And just understanding how to use the 4 buckets. And that is it. And it really is so simple and easy that my son can teach you. It's just so easy. So he gets paid, and we have his money automatically allocate to the buckets. And we look in his app. We make sure that the spreadsheet that we created matches his app and all the money matches. All of his investments, everything like that, every Thursday.
What are the so you use the app. So what are the best apps out there? Because I know there's a ton of them.
Well, this app is specifically made for kids.
Oh, I love that idea.
So yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. You can just Google, and a whole bunch will come up, but they're all essentially the same. This one is called Green Light. So if you have kids and you want to, it's until they're 18, you can use the app. And
Mhm.
essentially what the app is, it's a bank account that comes with a debit card that you can also use as a credit card. And so when I pay my son, I pay him in both. I pay him digital money and I pay him in cash. And I do that for a very specific reason, because he needs to learn how to use both.
Mhm.
And also because I did a whole podcast episode about this. Money has become air. Money is so
Yes.
intangible, and hardly anyone uses cash anymore.
Mhm.
Actually, this is a real statistic. Only 10% of the people in the entire world, not just this country, the world, 10% of people use cash. The rest
Mhm.
of it is digital. So no one's paying attention, right? So your money is now on this plastic card or on your phone, add to cart, and you're not paying attention to what you're spending. And
Mhm.
then that's why you have more month left at the end of the money.
Yeah.
Right. So this is why we have our dates every Thursday when I give him his allowance. And I say, look, this is how much you have. And then I have him count his cash every time he opens his wallet. You need to know exactly how much you have. Make sure it matches, everything that we're reconciling. And he has money goals. He's going to buy his own car. Here
Oh, he's 10. I love it.
he has thousands of dollars saved in cash and investments, and he will, he's on his way. So when you're setting up your 4 buckets, you can use apps, you can use spreadsheet. There's so many different ways to do it, but it's also personal as well, because
Mhm.
if it's something that is going to make you feel like it's icky or you hate it or it's soul sucking and it's like, I don't want to do this, you're not going to do it.
Mhm.
So we figure out along the way while we work together, well, what makes you happy when you're doing your money. Like, do you like doing it this way? Do you like doing it this way? And sometimes it's a hybrid of all the things, because everyone's different.
You said something a minute ago that I thought, oh yeah. So you reconcile every week with
Yes.
him. I haven't reconciled a checkbook in, I don't know how long. We don't write a lot of checks. We tend to use a credit card for everything. One credit card, this way, that again, that was that manage everything. Where is it going?
You need to reconcile your credit card.
I look at it every
Reconcile
month.
doesn't just mean checks. Reconcile just means balance your money and make sure everything matches and that you don't have any fraudulent charges, because that is a huge issue right now. I have actually had 2 fraudulent charges on 2 different credit cards of my own in the last 2 months, and I've had to get new cards. And because of all of the safeguards that I had set up, they didn't get very far. And I knew about it immediately.
How
And
so?
so because of all the safeguards that I have notifications and all kinds of things set up, and I have my credit locked down. I have all kinds of things. So they could not do anything. So I caught it immediately, called my credit card company immediately. They immediately closed that card and sent me a new one. And same thing with the next one. And the first charge was $1,500. The second charge was $16. And sometimes they do a little amount to see if the card works.
Yeah, a couple of years ago. So it would be 2 years, exactly 2 years ago in October. Actually this week now that I think about it. And you would think because of this, I should be better. My PayPal. So this is what happened. It was through Facebook. I noticed a charge on PayPal, which is connected to my credit card, for $500 for Facebook ads. I've never done anything more than like, a $10, boost or whatever it is. That's not something I do. So I knew immediately that was fraudulent. And I called the credit card company. Interestingly, another charge went through as I was on the phone with the credit card company. And the lady said to me, she's like, okay, so another one just came over. She's like, I'm assuming that's not you. Well, to do a little bit more research, Facebook was really impossible to get in touch with. So luckily, you really do need to make sure your credit card company is going to support you.
Yes.
And they did. They sent new cards. Interestingly, something similar happened the next month. Like they were just like these weird things that kept happening. So maybe 3 times they changed my card, brand new card. And this is one for me, one for my husband, because it's the same account, 2 different cards. Yeah. And it had to be my card, we thought. Well, turns out after changing the card 3 times, we got somebody on the phone that said to us, well, did you ever change the PIN that was attached to your card? And we both looked at each other and went, what's the PIN number? We had never set one up.
Wow.
Didn't know we needed to. It wasn't ever prompted.
Interesting. And then they figured out your PIN number.
Right, because we thought it must have been something internal
they set
with
it up
them.
Then. Yeah.
But it was something so simple as that. But we had been, tearing our hair out of our head for months going, and almost blaming the credit card company like, hey, we haven't used the card or whatever, was going on. At that point, we were really paying attention. But this for to constantly be happening, they were definitely in the account because they were trying to change the address and the phone number.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they got really in deep.
Yeah. So that's why I was curious when you talked about the safeguards, because obviously a PIN number is important. And I'd love to have, tell us what some of those safeguards might be. And maybe we can add that to the show notes so people can, take a look right away and go, okay, I need to do this with my credit card.
Definitely making sure that you have 2-factor authentication on everything, not even your credit cards, everything. Working in insurance, so my degrees in education, I was a mortgage underwriter, insurance underwriter, and a real estate consultant. So I have so much financial knowledge, it's insane. So with the cyber crimes that are going on now, there's a lot of insurance companies that won't even insure companies anymore. and it's crazy. So all of the cyber crimes that are happening a lot through email with phishing and malware and all these different things where I'm even getting them. I get all these emails that look real. They really look real. And like from PayPal saying, you just got this, you need to pay this invoice.
Right.
Of something that I have no idea what it is. And all these random things. And a friend of mine recently just told me that his father was just scammed out of $2,000 because he got this email saying that he can get this great deal on this grill for his backyard. And he bought the grill, never got the grill, and $2,000. And he used his debit card and they emptied out his entire account. Never use your debit card, by the way, unless it's an emergency. Always use your credit card. These are different things that you really need to know about. On your credit cards, make sure that anytime a transaction is made, you have a notification that pops up on your phone. Because that's the easiest way to know what's going on. And just, random things, just like, it's just, and then there's some things you don't even think about, like the PIN number and all these different, like everything has to, even your Facebook account, your Instagram account, 2-factor authentication, and lock everything down, everything, especially stuff online. When you get your mail, even shred anything that has your personal information on it. Do not recycle it or throw it in the garbage. This is another way people get your address, and knowing that your name matches that address and all the different things like that.
Well, and even that, it's funny that you say that, because yesterday we got something in the mail and it had a code on it, and it had and I thought, if somebody took that, they could, scan it, and it might've been for a loan. I don't even remember. They could scan that, fill it out, pretend that they're us, and get a loan. I mean, well,
if you have your credit locked down, then they wouldn't be able to. So locking down your credit, freezing your credit is extremely important. There's so many things that people need to do. I mean, the list is endless. It's endless. And I do all my podcast episodes are about all these things. So
awesome. So as a woman, as a mom, I'm not a mom. I'm a stepmom, and I'm a really awesome auntie.
Close enough.
What was one of the things that we said? Savings, investments, giving, and spending. A lot of my giving is to my nephew.
I would call that spending then.
That boy. And when I think about it, it's fine, but, locking down credit and, as someone who, he's in an early stage in life, he's made some mistakes. He's trying to move forward. So this will be, great information for him too, not just the moms and, and aunties out there. What's the first thing that we can do? Obviously, everything we just talked about with our credit, we need to take care of right away. But so somebody's listening in and going, I really haven't paid attention. My husband takes care of it. It's never really, I don't really know, what we have or where it is. First steps.
You just asked me 10 questions.
Sorry, I did.
And I can answer all of them. So first things first is awareness. Awareness is step number 1. And that is for anyone. And like, if you have money, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman or you identify as whatever. If you have money, you need to do this. You need to get your head out of the sand and pay attention to your money. Okay. If you're married and you don't take care of the money, you need to go talk to your partner and say, hey, we need to talk about money. I need to know everything about everything, and sit down and do your money dates at least once a month. And what happens is when people get paid, whether you have a business or an employee job, right? W-2 job or whatever, whenever you get paid, what most people do is pay their bills first, and then they're left with this little bit left over at the end of the check, and then hope that they have enough money left for groceries and gas for their car and maybe a fun night out. And then there's more month left at the end of the money. And that's when people finish out the month on their credit cards. And that's why people are slowly creeping into debt. And the debt issue in this country is obscene. It is horrific. The banks are charging a ridiculous amount of interest. And so people aren't, first of all, paying attention to what's coming in or going out. And you're just spending, using the air, right? And then you get the bill that's also air that you don't even look at. And you just pay whatever you feel like you can afford, a little bit above the minimum on your credit card statement. And then the cycle just keeps continuing. And what's happening with a lot of people is they're making payments on their credit card statements that are under the amount that they're being charged in interest. So they're paying more interest than they're actually paying every month. And you're getting nowhere fast. So your bill just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. You have no idea how much interest you're paying. You're not looking at the statement. You just look at the number of what's the bill, what's the minimum. Okay, you make a decision. How much money do I have left? You pay a little bit and move on with your life. And meanwhile, you're on your phone scrolling. While you're scrolling, all these ads pop up for this thing that you need, right? And the marketing is set up to make us feel that our wants are our needs, right?
Yeah.
And all of our needs really are food, shelter, water, transportation, and maybe it branches out a little bit from there, right? And then the wants come in after that, right? But the basic needs are your basic needs, right? And people are it's just amazing. I have people send me stuff. Look, because I talk about this so much that people look at this thing I just found. You need to talk about this, and it's like someone sent me this thing the other day for this a toothpaste head thing that was a thing like Yoda from Star Wars, where the toothpaste comes out of its mouth. It was like, I'm like, really?
That.
And
nobody needs that.
And on the ad, it says, you need this. And now, and if you pay attention, you'll see most of the ads say, you need this. Or if the ad itself doesn't say it, in the comments below it or around it or something near it, or the audio will say, you need this. And it's a piece of crap that you don't need. And in your mind, you're not paying attention. And you're like, oh, I do need this. I need this Yoda thing on my toothpaste. Yeah,
Baby Yoda's really
cute. I don't like Star Wars, right? So it's interesting. So first of all, is awareness. Just go look at your money. Go look at it. I dare you. I dare you to go look at it. Open up your bank account. Open up your credit card statements. Go line by line and see what's going on. When I wasn't paying attention to my money and then I started paying attention to my money, I found so many things. So one of the things, this was a really interesting thing, when I moved after I had sold my house and everything, I had gotten AT&T. They had they don't have it anymore, but at the time they had their own streaming service for TV. So I signed up for their streaming service, and then I got this email that they were having a deal for 6 months. You can get a special deal on it. It was half price or whatever. So I called them up and I said, oh, can I get the deal? They said, sure, but we have to cancel your account and then reissue you a new account. I'm like, okay, whatever, do what you got to do. They never canceled my old account.
Oops.
They were double charging me until I started paying attention to my money. And then I looked at the credit card statement and I said, oh my God, I can't believe I've been paying. I haven't even been looking at it. I had no idea.
That's interesting. We just had a conversation. So AT&T bought a bigger company, and we've been with that company since they existed. And, it was, $150, which is now something like $350. I mean, we looked at it literally, we had the conversation yesterday. We were spending last year $4,000 in streaming services with DirecTV. What? Because and periodically we would talk about it, but they had this one thing and and my husband would get busy and I would go, okay, we'll just pay it. And finally, when we had the conversation and we're really looking at what we're using, and that's another thing, what are you using? He said to me, he goes, we can't do this anymore. And
so this is part of the awareness and the communication. Right? Even communication, if you have a partner, your communication needs to say, with each other. First of all, let's look at everything, right? Where is everything? What are our bank accounts? What credit cards do we have? What are the account numbers and passwords and all these things? I have a document that I've created that I give all my clients and have them fill it out so that it's all written down and they have it. And then they keep it somewhere safe where everyone knows in the family that needs to know where it is, especially if something happens. One of my clients, she's a single mom. She's 2 kids. She has had 2 husbands pass away.
Oh,
2.
poor lady.
And now she's a single mom, and she always had no clue. They just had him do it, have him do it. And so now, she's got to figure it all out. And she didn't know where anything was, And then when my own father passed away, I gave my mom that sheet. I said, look, we got to fill this out. We got to make sure, because, what happens if when, you pass, like, I need to know, all these things. And so I had flown back home so many times this year, just going back and forth, trying to help. And it's a lot if you don't know, if there was never any real good communication and all you did was fight, or just ignore. Because with my ex and I, we never spoke about it. We never fought about it, but we just never spoke about it. We kept our money completely separate. I had mine, he had his, I took care of this, he took care of that. There was never any money talk ever. And so that when it came time for me to do everything, all the stuff that he used to do, I didn't know how to do because he did it.
Sure.
So it was, interesting. So everyone's situation is different. So if you have a partner, you need to communicate, because what if, right? What if something happens? It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter. So whether you're in your 30s and you have your spouse pass away in a car accident, or you're in your 70s or even older and you have your spouse pass away and they've always taken care of the money and you never ever spoke about it, you need to talk about it now. Because what are you going to do? Do you have a plan? Like, you really need to at least just, first of all, know where everything is.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, I get it. I mean, first and foremost, awareness, communication, those are the 2 pieces that I think every one of us, again, going back to those emotions, the shame, the embarrassment, the whatever it might be. It's time, in this day and age, we as women, we need to be able to stand on our own feet and not kind of go, oh, well, my husband will take care of it, or my dad will take care of it. Because, a lot of times, a lot of women still kind of rely on their dads. I mean, grown women that still rely on their dads to, tell them what to do when it comes to, money and finance, even not even paying attention to their husbands, like, oh, well, let's talk to my dad about that, and whether the dad was good or not. I'm finding that out with some of my friends. Nobody knows until, you're in a situation. This is such a great conversation. We can continue on and on. And
like I said, I could talk about this for hours.
No, it's great. I'm like, ooh, I'm like, I need the spreadsheet. I'm like, I'm listening to all these things because like I said, Mark and I are pretty good. I know where things are, we talk about it. I will admit that sometimes I'll buy something that I'm like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. I've gotten a lot better, because I remember days when, the money ran out before the month, years ago before I got married. I do remember those days and remember how I felt. And, just paying attention. I'm still intrigued by, how you go from having nothing to, step by step, learning and, awareness, learning who you are, what your needs are. And I think that's something that we all need to kind of step back and, get real with ourselves. What do we really need? What are we spending our money on? What are we wasting our money on?
So. And especially now with the holidays coming up, this is spending season, right? Sweater weather, right? Sweater weather turns into spending season.
Yep.
Right. Pumpkin spice season.
Mama needs new coat.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Mama doesn't need a new coat.
Pay attention to what you're spending on, because when you get that good deal at the store, right? Everyone's like, oh, Black Friday and all these great deals. But if you put it on your credit card and you don't pay the bill off, it's not such a great deal anymore.
Yeah. Yes. You know what? I'm going to ask you one question about that.
Okay.
So a lot of times with a credit card, and I think a lot of people are unclear about this. You get your credit card and there's like the current statement, the balance for this statement.
Mhm.
but there's still more on the card. Explain that to us real quick, because I
Okay.
know years ago I was confused by that. And even sometimes I'm like, oh, wait, how much do I need to pay this time in order to be current?
Okay. So the way that the credit card works is there is a period of time when your spending is accrued. So what'll happen is, say, for example, it's September 1st to October 1st. So all of your spending between September 1st and October 1st is on that one bill. And you normally don't get the bill till a few days after the end of the state. It's called the statement period, right? So the end of the statement period in this case would be September 1st to October 1st. I'm just making it up. It's usually 28 days.
Mhm.
So I don't feel like
Figuring out the
whatever.
dates.
Whatever.
The first to the first, I like it.
Whatever. Just crazy math. So you have your statement period. So everything is added up just from those dates. And that is your total for that statement. And then when you get the statement, it's already started adding for October 2nd through the next statement period, whenever that ends. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So that what'll happen is the interest that you're paying is on that statement period and whatever was rolled over from before that. So that statement period is now added to whatever your balance was from the period before. And then the interest is on that entire amount. And that's what's killing you. So then the next statement period will be your bill. And then everything just keeps compiling on top of each other. Did that
So-
answer your question?
It does. You know, I think it's really important because sometimes we kind of look at the bill and it's like, wait, because there's all these different numbers. And I think it's really important for people to be clear. Okay, first and foremost, always, you know, you have to pay your statement back, whatever is, you know, what that statement balance is. And I think a lot of people do this now. They use one credit card to pay for everything.
Yes.
Pay that off.
Mhm.
And then anything else that's due, that's probably something you want to tackle ASAP as well.
It depends upon the situation and how you get paid and all of that. But just to be current, like to answer your question, you said, well, how do I stay current? Is to be current, technically all you have to pay is the minimum to be current. To be considered paying on time and all of that, you just have to pay the minimum. To manage your money properly, pay the full amount. If you can't pay the full amount, stop overspending. Just stop it. Stop it. Stop the retail therapy. I can go on for days about that.
I love it. Well, maybe that's another conversation we have
Right.
around the holidays.
Yeah.
Is about retail therapy. I love it. Okay, so right before we go, last comment before we sign off. Any last words? Any last words?
My last meal will be pizza from New York.
Mine too. And donuts. New York style pizza.
Right? In New York.
Absolutely.
Right. I have so much to say. I mean, I could talk about money for hours and hours. There's so much to it, but at the end of the day, I simplify it. And that's really what I do is I break it down. I have learned so much about money. I've read over 300 books. I've hired people. I've listened to podcasts, taken courses, doing all these, like I know so much about money, right? So it's like you go on Google University, and you start Googling money, and it's so overwhelming, and you can't understand anything, because that's where I started, Google University. And that just made me run away from, I just X'd it out and walked away, and, there's just so much to know. But at the end of the day, it's so basic. And so I've taken out all of the parts of the fluff and the jargon that no one understands. And I simplified it so much that I taught my 10-year-olds. And now I'm teaching moms how to teach their kids, right? So we stop those generational patterns now. It stops with you. We are now responsible as parents to teach our kids. Because our parents, most of them had pensions. They didn't have to worry about their futures. We have to worry about our futures. And we don't want to worry about it. We want to be set for life. Right? So we need to set ourselves up for success, set our family up for success, learn how to leave a legacy for your family instead of all these crazy money stories where people are just crying and shame and embarrassment, not understanding what to do.
I love it. Eileen, how can people find you?
The easiest way is my website, momswhomoney.com. And you can get to all my socials, my podcasts, and everything from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this enlightening conversation. I'm actually going to get off and I'm going to take a look at my credit card bill because I know that that is important. And since that's what we use. So I appreciate your insight. And I do look forward to having another conversation, maybe around the holidays about this conversation about overspending around the holidays. So thank you so much for this information and fun conversation. And I look forward to next time.
Thank you so much, Denise. That was so awesome. What a great conversation.
It was. So,
Yeah.
So everyone listening, thank you for listening, and keep an eye out for conversation with Eileen Joy, the Money Coach for Moms Part 2, coming possibly in December. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. I'm Denise Stiegel with the Wonder Series podcast that is sponsored by Living Healthy List at livinghealthylist.com. We're here every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will see you next week. Until then, I leave you with this: healthy living, happy life. Have a great one.